I was able to click together some pieces of the puzzle that had been somewhat of a mystery to me. I think recently there's been like a layer of my story in my childhood that I've been exploring. I think in a prior episode on feminine and masculine energy, I talked about how I think a lot of my disconnection from my body and a lot of my like inability to express emotions or speak my truth was because my dad was a very successful, busy CFO at a casino and I didn't see him. And so I made a connection that why I couldn't speak my feelings was because my dad was not home a lot. And when he was home, we really wouldn't talk to him because understandably he was incredibly tired from working all day. And I kind of made that connection because it was the more obvious one. I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. Like my dad wasn't there, so I have a problem. Like I perform for men and I don't want to speak the truth to men because I didn't know how. And I do think that there is an element of that that's true. But I think there's a deeper learning that was sneaky. And what came up for me today with this boundary example was that, and I say this with no judgment and no fault at all, it just is. And the way that I was raised is perfect. And it gave me exactly the lessons I needed to learn. And I'm grateful to unpack all of this now and to maybe help someone out there who's listening to this really feel seen and to click a piece of the puzzle in for them. But I never really looked at my mom and my mom's side of the equation until recently. And I think I've started to realize that we didn't really have any boundaries in our house. And I picked up this pattern of running away from childhood because when my mom would tell me to do something and I didn't feel like I could say no, or when I did say no, it was like almost voided. It was like no didn't exist. The only way that I knew to get out of the situation was to go to my room and close the door and lock it and then avoid everyone. And I think I just picked up this pattern of having something happen, not knowing that if I spoke my truth, it didn't matter, and then leaving. And that's how I soothed myself. And I think that that's why I can be incredibly avoidant of conflict, because I had over 18 years of this repeated pattern on a near daily basis ingrained into my system. And again, there's no judgment. Of course, this is a parental dynamic. You know, my mom was doing her best. We had a lot of kids in the house. But I think especially there was a part of me that all of my siblings kind of reacted in the same way. Like my sister would go to her room, my brother Aaron would go to his room, I would go to my room. We all kind of reacted to it in the same way, which is interesting to me. But I think I did it in an interesting way. I wouldn't want to hurt my mom's feelings if I could help it. So I would wait a couple of minutes after the fight to leave because it was almost like I didn't want to make her feel bad. But it wasn't like this every time. There were times where, like Cam was talking about, when you have boundaries continuously denied, you blow up like a powder keg. And I did have moments like that. I will say, especially as a kid. But I think a lot of the times when I would get into the situation, I wouldn't want to hurt my mom's feelings by making it so obvious that something she said made me go to my room. So I would wait and almost like pretend like everything was okay and then sneak away and then be very upset and like cry and have a reaction. But that reaction was like not seen by anyone. That's the real reason why I have a hard time expressing my feelings to people and why I have had a very hard time with boundaries and speaking my truth. Because first of all, when I was young and I did this, it wasn't really taken into consideration. So as Cam was saying, let's use this as an example. If you're someone who speaks a boundary, but cannot receive the response to the boundary, you are in some ways harming that person. And I'm not saying that in a dramatic way. I'm saying that in If you are setting a boundary and then you're not allowing the person to express in whatever way they want, whether that's sadness or whether that's, wait, what do you mean? Or can you give me more examples? If you're not holding space for whatever the reaction is, they're going to internalize a level of rejection from you that will make the fight or flight happen. And that, I think, is what happened to me, because why I was able to find this part of my puzzle, my endless puzzle of my soul, was because after we had this moment today, we're in the kitchen and Cam brought up, baby, would you like to talk about it? What came up for you in that moment? And then I was able to articulate to him, well, when you said that to me, I had a series of thoughts run through my head very fast that made me very overwhelmed. And those thoughts sounded like, he hates me and he doesn't like me anymore. And I'm wrong. I did something wrong. I hurt his feelings. I messed up. I can't recover from this. I'm stupid. I didn't read the room right. And all of these thoughts just looped really, really fast. And that's what would make my heart beat very fast. This is what would make like tears well in my eyes, because it's like this loop. These are all the things that I think I picked up from the first 18 years of my life in these moments. Now, no one is at fault for this, because people are doing the best they can with the tools that they have and the resources they have at the time. When I was growing up, all of these concepts were not discussed. There weren't even podcasts. Like, how are anyone supposed to know these things unless you're a PhD back then? So no one is at fault here, but I do understand now that it was the response to my response. When a boundary was set and I responded in a certain way and there were wrong ways that I responded, this is how I internalized it. That is what has made me become such an avoidant person of conflict. And that when I have a feeling that I don't like, I will swallow it, not speak it. And then the relationship, no matter what it is, erodes. This is with people who come on my walks, who I've had a very hard time removing from the community. You all know the story about me waiting 2 years to remove someone from the community because I could not articulate to him that his behavior was bothering me so much. This is also the case for coworkers. This is the case for why I wasn't promoted very much when I worked at Meta. This is the case for friendships that I will basically just leave without a trace instead of saying, hey, this thing you're doing is really upsetting me. And this is the root of a lot of my behavior. And I'm just sharing this because maybe someone out there is struggling with the same exact thing and they can't understand why, and they can't find that missing piece of the puzzle. I just invite you to explore what thoughts race through your head when you are in an activated state, when someone tells you a boundary. And if they sound like mine, lovingly investigate what would happen in your household as a child.